But yeah, so like there was one runner that was missing for like 11 hours. Another guy was missing for 24 hours.
Hello and welcome back to the Free Outside podcast, where we talk to cool people, talk about cool topics, and build a cool community. We have an announcement today. I, along with Allison Powell, are putting on a race in Bozeman, Montana. We're calling it the Montana Meltdown. There's a 4-hour, a 12-hour, and a 24-hour in beautiful Bozeman, Montana, October 12th to the 13th. Link down below. Sign up, come party with us in the Rocky Mountains. With that, today's guest on the show is, I would say, a 200-mile expert. She has won many 200-milers, raced many 200-milers, and just done a ton of other cool races as well. She has really cool stories going back to the first year of Bigfoot, which is insane. We get into that. It's a fun conversation. We have Mika Thewes on the podcast today, and let's just dive into the episode. So sign up for that race too. Thank you guys for being here. Let's go. All right, thanks for joining the podcast, Mika. So first off, I'm going to try a new opening question here. When you were a little kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, probably like a singer, something like that. I didn't really think about it too hard. I think I just picked like the one that sounded like everyone else wanted to do. Yes, I don't think I seriously considered the question. I still don't think I've seriously considered the question.
Yeah, are you a singer now? Can you sing?
I am completely tone deaf, and no one would enjoy hearing me sing. I can promise you that.
Wasn't gonna make you. I was just curious if that dream came to fruition at all.
I do sometimes get embarrassed during races, especially like at night if I'm singing out loud to myself, and then like all of a sudden I see a person, and I do sometimes feel the need to apologize for them hearing my singing out loud. But I mean, how loud can you really be singing while you're running? It's probably not that, well, I mean, it's bad, but it's probably not that loud.
True. Yeah. It's probably a good way to stay awake though. I mean, I usually talk to myself in like accents or like impressions or something really stupid sounding. Is singing your method to stay awake when you're alone out there?
Usually, well, when I'm feeling good. When I'm feeling bad, I'm just, being like throwing my own pity party in my head. But when I'm feeling good, I'll definitely sing out loud.
Yeah, I think we met during one of those. We both were probably having a pity party the first year of Cocodona, somewhere right before the Mount Eldon climb. I think we met.
Yeah,
then.
Well, you were in a good mood because you were chatting with your pacer, whoever was with you. I was out of my mind and did not really register when you passed me.
But yeah, did we meet at that? Was that when we met on that first year of Cocodona, I think?
Yes, for
Very
sure.
late.
No, I remember exactly when you... Well, like, I remember when you passed me, but like I wasn't functional enough to even say hi.
Yeah.
I think Joel was like, oh, that was... I think Joel might have even had been paying attention to where people were, because he was like, oh, that's the thru hiker. I don't even know. He definitely mentioned you, but I don't remember very much of that climb.
Oh yeah, I don't remember hardly any of that whole race. It was like my second ultra marathon. I didn't know how anything worked. It was a very, very tough year too. Did you get third that first year of Cocodona?
No, I got fourth.
Oh, sad.
Somehow. I was completely out of it. I can't believe I pulled that off, because it was like 90-something hours. Like, it was not good. That whole race was a mess. I mean, I was a mess at that race, and then they had a lot of little kinks to work out that first year, I think. But, yeah, that was a rough one. That and the stupid power line switchback climb out of like, what was it, Blackpool or something? That was the worst.
Yeah, one of those places. I think I just laid down and slept for like 10 minutes there, just in a heap.
Well, so my thing, I was so exhausted and tired. So I would hike up like if I made it up like 1.5 switchbacks, I let myself lay down for 3 minutes, and then I would get up and do 1.5 switchbacks and then lay down for 3 minutes, and I just did that over and over until I finally got to the top.
Oh my gosh. Would you sleep for those 3 minutes or just like lay there?
I mean, I have no idea. I was out of my mind. I was out of my mind for most of that race. I mean, my sleeping was so bad. Like, I slept, I think that's maybe the 200 miler that I slept the most at. Like, I must have slept 7 hours during that race. At least 8 hours, like, split up. Uh,
Is that the
yeah,
longest you've
nothing.
ever been out during a race or the longest any event's ever taken?
Either the first year Cocodona or Moab the year I did it. I don't know which one was longer. Because I think, and my first year at Bigfoot was pretty long, but not, I think, because I was over 4 days for both Cocodona and Moab. I think those are the two longest. I don't remember which one's longer. They were both
Jeez.
awful though.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. How did you get into ultras or running in general?
Um, well, so my mom's a runner. So, like, growing up, she used to make us do, like, little races, like, locally, and they were terrible, and I hated running. And then, once I went to college, everyone was in shape, and I was very out of shape. And, so after the first year of college, I just decided I wanted to, get into shape. I was overweight at that point, and lose some weight and picked up running, and so I started running in like June of 2010, and then in September, October, I did my first half marathon, and then in that May I did my first marathon,
Wow.
and then I got into an accident and I had to take some time off that summer, but then I got back into it and did another marathon in the next fall.
And then when did you jump
And
to trails and beyond marathons?
yeah, so when I was in college, at one point I decided I must have been about 20. I was like, well, I was going to school on the East Coast, and I'm like, well, I can try and get fast and qualify for Boston, or I can just keep running slow and double the distance. And so, yeah, in 2012, I did my first 50. And so I just decided to double the distance. I think I had run like 8 miles of trails before I did a 50-mile trail race, like in total in my life.
Wow.
So I fell like 4 times the first 25 miles. It was a steep learning curve with that. And then, but after that, I was pretty hooked. And I did 100 the year after in 2013, did my first 100. And then 2 years later, I did my first 200 in 2015. So kind of all,
Did you just like
uh,
going up in distance
it's all
continually?
amped up pretty quickly. I kind of just kept just deciding to double it.
Was the draw to just get further and further and see how far you could do it, or did you just like the challenge, or why did you keep going up rather than see how fast you could do 100 or something like that?
I don't think I like to run fast. Like I was like, I don't want to do speed work. I don't want to like try and run really fast. Like that sounds terrible. I'd rather just, And then once you get to 200s, like after a while, it's like, oh, like you can be kind of fast at 200s, but like you don't have to be actually fast, and like you can still do pretty well. And once I realized that, I was like, I mean, no one was running them, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I just like after I just kind of stumbled upon. I heard about Tahoe. I guess must have been after the first year in 2014, and then I saw they were coming out with Bigfoot, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know 200s existed. And I mean, no one did back then. They were brand new. And looking between Tahoe and Bigfoot, I'm like, well, I live in the Midwest, so it'd be better to do less elevation, like a lower high point in the race. So I decided not to do Tahoe and do Bigfoot, which of course is like close to 50,000 feet of climbing. But I was like, but it only goes up to 6,000 feet, so I won't get like altitude sickness.
Yeah, totally.
It was great.
Yeah, I want to hear more about the first year of Bigfoot because it sounds crazy.
It was insane. It was the crazy, like I could talk about that all day. I mean, like spot trackers were optional, so a bunch of people weren't wearing them. People got food poisoning at the aid stations. One person even had to drop because the food poisoning was so bad, but we all got food poisoning because, like, no one knew anything about food safety back then. It's truly racist. But yeah, so like there was one runner that was missing for like 11 hours. Another guy was missing for 24 hours and made it back down to the road towards the high school, but was coming from the wrong direction. So we have no idea like where he went. He was over 200 miles and he finished before the cutoff. I mean, he didn't do the course, but I mean, it was the first year, so no one cared too much about all that, but yeah, it was, I mean, there were a lot of shenanigans. Like, we were allowed to camp out at the school that first year. So everyone was, like, just pitched tents in next to the parking lot. And, there was backwards beer miles, and all kinds of stuff that went on. Like, the night before the race, before we had to wake up at, like, 5 a.m. to, like, load the buses.
So was it not even really a race? It was almost like a get together and a march through the woods of like all these brave people.
It had a lot more of that vibe. I mean, I don't know if like the fast people that did end up podiuming were competitive, but like most of us were just like, we had no idea what we were doing. Like there had been one year of Tahoe had happened, and that was the only 200-mile mountain race in the country, I think, at that point. So there had been like 200 that happened before Bigfoot happened. And like none of us knew the course really. And it was brutal. And everyone had terrible blisters. Like my feet were completely destroyed. Like no one knew about pre-taping. Well, a couple people did, but yeah. Colorado 200 used to exist, and that happened actually too. So there had been 200s that had happened that year, or that before. But, yeah, it was a gnarly time. I mean, yeah, it had much more of a, like, we're all in this together kind of a feel.
Yeah.
And, like, let's all just help each other survive this walk through the woods kind of vibe than the races do now. But
did you enjoy that it was so brutal? Was it fun for you? Is that why you enjoy 200s in general?
Oh, it was awful. It was like I was miserable the entire 4 days. Like I was absolutely not happy for like 4 days straight. And I was not happy at the finish. Like I wasn't smiling. I didn't care that I had finished. I just wanted to shower and like sit down. And it wasn't until like a week later that I was like, that was probably like the best thing I've ever done in my life.
Wow. And then, so then you were hooked?
Yeah, and I mean, I was the youngest runner that year. I was 24 when I did it, so, yeah. So, I mean, everyone looked at me as like, I mean, now there are like 18-year-olds doing them, right? Mm-hmm. But back then, like 24, everyone was like, why did you sign up for this? What's your background? I'm like, I've done like 200-miler races in the Midwest, so I figured I could come and do this in Washington State. And, yeah. It was not great, but I met a lot of people, made a lot of friends, and yeah, a lot of friends that I still have to this day. So
yeah, you go back to that every year, or at least race it every other year now too. It must be special in some way.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say which is my favorite. I think Tahoe might be my favorite race, but I do really like Bigfoot. And yeah, I've missed 1 year. I wasn't there in 2016, but other than that, I volunteer on the even years. So like this year, I'll be aid station captaining, and which is probably my favorite volunteer job to do at a race. But yeah, it's a great great little group of people that show up for that. I mean, now there's like a bunch of new people, but when so a lot of the old people are around too, still like volunteering and helping out. And even like people from the first couple years, it's not necessarily just the first year. I mean, there were like 60 of us that year, so it was just so small.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, you've done like every 200 well, now there's more every single year. What is like your favorite race you've ever done of all the distances, the races, even Boston this year? Is anything touch the 200s that are just so remote, or are those your favorite?
No, I know. I mean, Tahoe's probably my favorite. Like the full loop Tahoe. I mean, nothing can
Okay.
really compare to that. I mean, I love Bigfoot, but like Bigfoot, I need like a year off because like I'll race Tahoe every year that I can,
Mhm.
but Bigfoot, I need like a year off to like forget enough about it to like want to do it again because there's just like it's brutal. It's just it can be pretty brutal out there. So, but like Tahoe, like you're right along the lake. Like some of the aid stations are in ski lodges. You're running like you go through straight through Incline Village. Like there's civilization. So it's not as remote as Bigfoot, and it's like a lot easier in some ways. But I just like the Sierras are just so gorgeous. That area
Mhm.
is just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you could just like go for an FKT down there and be in the Sierra for multiple days.
I know. I don't know if FKTs are gonna be my thing, but there's like one like maybe want to go after, but not nothing serious.
Yeah. Okay, let's go
But
to this year. How do you turn around from Cocodona and in 1 month and still win Tahoe? That seems crazy for two 200s within about a month.
yeah, dude, that was a rough recovery from Cocodona, as I imagine you can relate to.
I wasn't
That was
even
pretty
running
brutal
yet.
this year.
I wasn't even running yet by the time you were racing Tahoe 200. That's how rough my
Well, the
recovery
funny
was.
thing is, yeah, like the whole podium, right? So, because Harry was first and Mike McKnight was second,
Mhm.
and all three of us had raced Cocodona.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I guess you
I,
don't need any recovery or taper or anything. You just jump from one to the next.
yeah, I mean, I felt absolutely terrible for the first 3 weeks after Cocodona.
Mhm.
I was like struggling to like, do any running. And then I did a track workout just because I was visiting home and everyone was doing it. So I was like, oh, I'll try to do this track workout. And like halfway through the second sprint, my hamstring just gave out and like it like didn't work anymore. And so like for the week, I was in like massive amounts of pain. I could like barely walk. I was like trying to do runs. And I think my body was just telling me to stop. It wasn't until the week before the race. I think I got like 1 week of training in before Tahoe, and then yeah, I did like 100-mile week, and then I had like a 4-day taper, and then I raced Tahoe.
Wow.
So
What's your mindset going into a 200? Are you like a spreadsheet person? Do you have like paces that you want to go, or do you just go by effort level? How do you attack these?
yeah, so I don't know if I'm an outlier. I mean, I'm sure I'm an outlier. So I am, as you know, very low tech. I have sheets of paper with the aid stations and drop bags listed, and I make guesses on what time I'll be at everything, and then I just have this like handwritten sheet of paper that I'll show if I have like crew or pacers, I'll just show that to them and be like, yeah, I think this is probably right. I like sort of looked at the course map. I kind of know the elevation, and it's usually like wildly off. Um, and then yeah, so I've never made a spreadsheet in my life, but just kind of and once you do races enough, right? Like Bigfoot was probably a lot. Well, so when I raced Bigfoot last year, I had past years to go off of, so I was able to kind of guess. But, I raced Bigfoot in 2021 and 2023, and my goal was the same both years. I was shooting for 65 hours.
Yeah.
And so in 2021, I ran 76 hours because it was a really hot year, and like the course conditions were just like there were so many down trees, like the course was in really bad shape. And then I had the same goal in 2023, and I ended up 58 hours. So both I was like off by over 8 hours.
Wow.
So, and you know, you don't have like your crew can't check where you are because there's no service anywhere. So, you know, it's being off on your times is not necessarily doesn't make it easy if you do have crew. They're not
Yeah.
usually too happy about that.
Do you race to a time like that, or do you race the field? How would you?
I race time.
Okay, you don't care what anyone
Yeah,
else does.
no. No, and like that was the thing with Cocodona. Everyone was like I didn't know where the woman behind me was the entire. I think Rachel was. I think Rachel was behind me for most of it, like, or she was like racing like first or second. So I had no idea where she was. I didn't know when I passed her. I didn't know how much time I had on her because I was just trying to hit a time goal. 'Cause, you know, obviously I was going for sub 70, which I mean I was on pace for until obviously I had my little spill. But yeah, so I was just like I had no idea where anyone was that entire. Well, I was trying to catch you too, but other than that, I knew you were right ahead of me.
Yeah,
I
we
was
were
like, hi, I wonder if I'll catch Jeff.
yeah, you. I mean, I was just like leaking blood out my nose, and then, but eventually, it's like the blood in a fall that caused you to stop. So it was very strange. Like when you passed me going into Walnut, I was covered in blood. It looked like I'd murdered
Oh, I
somebody or
remember.
something.
We weren't sure what happened. It looked like you fell on your face. We were like, oh, you had a bad fall. And then we found out it was just a nosebleed.
Yeah. What? So what happened at Cocodona from Walnut to the end?
Yeah, so you got out ahead of me at Walnut. So right when I stood up to leave, I puked like 8 times. And then just immediately walked out, which was not the right decision because all of the, you know, food I had taken in was then gone. But yeah, I just ended up falling twice in a row. So I had been racing with I fractured my elbow like 12 days out from the race. So I like couldn't use poles or anything. And I was just trying to be careful, and I had taken a fall earlier in the race, but I didn't hit it really bad. It was just a bit sore. And, you know, my orthoped was just like, you can't fall on your elbow again. Do not fall. And I was like, well, I'll try. And so, yeah, when I left Walnut, we were just, you know, that first section is flat. And I was with my friend Joel, who was pacing. And, like, we were just talking, and I took a fall, and I, like, hit my elbow on the ground. And so I was super frustrated, and, like, obviously it hurt. And I stood up and started going again. And then within a minute or two, I fell a second time. And that time I had my arms to my side, I think because I just hit my elbow. And so I hit the ground directly with my chin.
Oh,
And my teeth punctured the inside of my mouth. It didn't go all the way through, but I was like dripping blood out of my mouth, laying on the ground, like, you know, scratched all over my face. My jaw hurt so bad. And I was just like, you know, Joel like moved my jaw and was like, well, I don't think it's broken because, you know, you'd be screaming in pain if it was. But I was like I couldn't chew. Like I couldn't do anything. I couldn't talk. Like I couldn't really move my jaw much. And it started swelling up pretty bad. And like then the blood was like dripping down my throat, and I had already lost all the food, so it was just making me more and more nauseous. But we hiked another 2 miles to where that last road before you turn onto the trail to go up Eldon. And as we were walking down that road, I just turned to him and I slowed down a little bit more and a little bit more, and I said like, I think I'm going into shock. And I pretty much just like immediately sat down and couldn't get back up.
oh,
So we sat there for like, I pulled out my bivvy, got in it, sat there for like, I don't know, half an hour, but then Joel didn't have his bivvy. So he was in shorts, and he was getting very cold. So he's like, well, we got to make a decision. And I was like, I don't think I can stand up, let alone go up over Eldon. And so, yeah, then I called, and I thought I had to call my race and DNF. And we just went back to the hotel. And I told Steve and everything. And then the next morning I woke up feeling like I passed out, and I woke up and I ate, and then it felt like usually, I guess shock is like a blood pressure thing, so I don't know, maybe my blood pressure started to get back to normal, and then I felt silly that I had dropped, so I asked Steve if I could finish.
So you, in the middle of a race, you slept for basically 3 hours and then 10 hours, and then went back and finished still on the podium?
I think I slept for like 10 hours.
That's so crazy. Just in the middle of 20 miles or so from the end, just a 10-hour nap and still end up on the podium.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously I was way off my time goal, but, had I not fallen, I would have hit it, so, but, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It was disappointing, but, I mean, like you, I mean, you have, what, 3 sixth place finishes? I now have 2 third place finishes in a row.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
wasn't what I was going for. It's good. I was happy not to have a DNF. Like, I didn't think it would cause any controversy, which apparently it kind of did. And people were like, "Oh, did you go to a hospital and get an IV?" And it it's kind of funny too, because it's like, if you look at the rules for like doping and stuff, right? Like, it's not just in competition you're not allowed to get IVs. Like, you're not allowed to get IVs at all.
Yep.
And
exactly.
and all the people questioning it, it's like, if you're like hungover and go to like one of those IV bars and get an IV, like, that's a doping violation.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
I mean, I understand everyone's concerned, because like obviously I'd be concerned about that too, but it's just like, do you guys even know the rules that you think I'm breaking?
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, I think, well, and you can go to a hotel in the middle of the race. I think it's just, I don't know what the rules exactly are, but it seems pretty firmly within them. That race is so unique that you do go by multiple hotels as well.
I know, yeah. Like, a lot of people do sleep in hotels in the middle of the race. Like,
Mhm.
I had never done it before that, but yeah, you're allowed to just leave with your crew as long as you go back and,
Yeah,
you
and
definitely go to hotels and shower and stuff.
that's exactly what you did. It's just usually what people not aiming for the podium do. So it's kind of funny it worked into your race finally.
Yeah, I think I took some leave and ate some pretzels. That's pretty much what I did at the hotel. I did shower, so that was
And then
nice, but
and then slept and then just finished it out. Just a 20-mile training run in the morning.
well, yeah, that was it. Like, 'cause the 2 guys that were helping crew me, Joel and Mike, like, they had work, so I was like, I'll just be sitting in the hotel feeling sorry for myself. I may as well just see if Steve will let me out on the course to go just do like a morning run. And that was, I think they had video of my finish, and as I crossed the finish line, I think my words were like, "See, I told you it wouldn't take that long," and that was because as I was driving Joel back, dropping him off, he was like, that's when we started talking about it, and I was like, I bet I could do it in like 4 hours. And Joel's like, well, you're hurt. Like, don't push it too hard. You probably shouldn't do it by yourself. I'm like, no, it'll be fine. It's just like a morning run. I bet I could do it in under 4 hours. And I finished, and it was like under 3.5 hours. And it was like right around, I think I did it in about 3 hours-ish, maybe a little over. So it was like, yeah, it was definitely under 4 hours. And so that's why my words were, I told you it wouldn't take that long.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I mean, you were flying down from Eldon. I remember trying to catch you at the finish was pretty hard.
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, I mean, you were flying down Eldon, even just trying to time it to see you at the finish was pretty tough. It was uh, oh, she's 5 miles out, can still get some food. And then it's like, no, it's going by very quickly. So it was pretty
Well,
fun to watch.
that was my main goal of the race was, so the year before, Mike McKnight, you remember, he like turned it around, and we like when I got into the last aid station, they were like, oh, Mike was like flying. He was running like 6-minute pace down that road into the finish. And I was like, 6-minute pace? Like, I want to see how fast I could run it. And so that year I like bombed down that road, and I checked my watch after. I was like, oh man, I ran so fast. And I looked at my watch, it was like 8-minute pace.
Wow. Yeah.
And so this year my goal was, I was like, okay, like my one goal of the race, like I want to hit 7-minute pace on that, because the 8-minute pace was ridiculous. And it felt like I was going so fast. So I'm like, my goal is to like run 7s down that. And I actually did manage to do that after my nap. So
Yeah.
I was pretty stoked.
Yeah, that is such an awesome way to finish, but I guess it helped to get the nap in too.
Yeah. No, if I had done it that night, I'm sure I would have been zombie running down that, like I'm sure you were.
Totally ready to
And
be
you
done.
had a interesting finish too with the police car.
Like a Arizona Ranger just like walked up to the finish line and was trying to order medical help and stuff like that, and I was like, I'm fine. I just finished a 250. Like I'm just like, we don't need an ambulance here or something.
I'm just like surprised that the race, like our Vipa didn't like inform him that everything was fine, or like it's Cocodona seems like it's gotten just such a big it's such a big event now, and like everyone kind of knows about it, that I'm surprised
Yeah, I think
he
they
was still
did.
worried.
I think they did try to tell him after. He just wanted to have that power trip at the end or something, so it was a little
Oh yeah.
weird. Yeah, so we just left within like 3 minutes of finishing. Just get out of there. Don't need to argue with somebody about whether an ambulance needs to come. Just go to bed.
Oh man, and
Yeah.
you're signed up for next year too.
So are you, right?
It's time, I know, but it won't be well, yeah, I'll be in the 1,000-mile club after next year, but I didn't want to go back. Like, I'd prefer not to, but, I don't necessarily feel the need to, like, if I, like, DNF a race, I'm not someone who, like, feels the need to go back necessarily. But I am, like, I'm always searching for that elusive, like, smooth race.
Mhm.
And so, like, at Bigfoot, I finally had that last year where everything went, like, pretty much as smooth as I could hope for, right? And so I was, like, pretty happy with that. And so, like, Cocodona has just been such a disaster every single time I run it that I just want a smooth race and just see how everything could go if it just went smooth.
Yeah,
And
that's
I don't know if that's possible at a race like Cocodona. Just the desert is just so brutal.
I know, that's my goal. Or like last year, it was like if I can just run a race that I feel good about, doesn't even matter how I place or anything, then I don't really feel pressure to go back. But I was injured within 50 miles of starting, so it was like, well, it's not going to be the perfect race. And when I just kept looking and seeing more and more people sign up for it, it was like, I need to just sign up for this for year number 5.
I know, and like
Yeah. Which year did you not do it?
the altered year where they had to
Okay.
start with the fire. Second year, I guess. Yeah, that would have been the second year. Yeah, and I heard that course change was a little rough. So I'm kind of glad I didn't do it that year, but I mean,
Yeah, it was just a totally different
it's
type of race.
it's a good race. It's just not my kind of course. So if I had a choice, I wouldn't go back because I just don't like desert running. I mean, I love the end when you're running through Flagstaff. I mean, the trails near Flagstaff are great, but
Mm-hmm.
the Bradshaws and like, well, I mean, I guess I doubt there's a single person who's ever run that race that likes what is that field when you have to, oh, like Fain Ranch. I don't think anyone
Yeah.
has any love for Fain Ranch. That's just the worst.
It's just
Uh,
like flags. There's nothing, no trail. You just like follow flags, and if it's at night, you're hunting for
through a
them.
cactus field.
Yeah.
Like you can't run it. Like it's flat. You could run it if it was not a field full of cactuses you're trying not to kick. But
Yeah.
oh,
Last year, both my pacers kicked cactuses and had to like sit down and take their socks off and try to pull the cactus barbs out of their toes.
yeah. My pacer also kicked a cactus and had to get it out. And then I was like, I yeah. He was convinced we could run it, and I was like, not convinced. And then I kicked the cactus and had to take my shoe off and get it out. And I was like, no more running. This is not runnable. No one runs this.
Yep.
It's impossible. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't have much love for the course itself because of the desert.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great race, and Flagstaff is nice, but it's not the kind of race once I get my nice race, I'm like done.
Yeah, I know.
Hopefully, I mean, it's got to be next year. It has to be next year.
Yeah, let's get it done next year. I know I love the idea of the race, but the actual like course crushes me every single time. Like on paper, it sounds pretty cool, everything, but it's hard. The last one I want to talk about is the newer race, Divide 200, up in Alberta, I guess. How is that race?
Yeah, so it's Sinister Sports. So that's they're a great race company. There were definitely, it was a first year race last year. So there are a few things that went a little off, and then it's the first race I've done. So like I didn't typically have like crew or pacers at 200s. Like the first ones I didn't have anyone
Mhm.
for several years, like a couple of years. And then but the last few ones I have had crew, and before that, like I just had like know a lot of people, and so like I'd randomly get friends to like help crew and pace me that I wasn't expecting. And so I had help, and I like knew people, and so that was the first race in a long time I've done completely solo. So I had no crew, no pacers. I didn't know anyone there, and it was only about 100 runners, and so pretty small field, especially at the front. It was really spread out. The first part of the course is amazing. It's like one of the craziest things I've done during a race before. Like you climb up to this ridge, and you just there's not really a trail. Like you just follow this ridge for like miles and miles, and like you bomb down like a scree field at one point, and like you can just look and see like the whole way you have to go. You're like, oh, I got to go over that other side of the ridge, and so it was like absolutely amazing. But I didn't read the course description quite closely enough because there are a lot of dirt roads and like ATV connector trails. And so like I was expecting, high mountain race, and it was like, oh, you actually need like a lot of speed if you want to do well at this race. And so, yeah, I think the guy that won it, like he went somewhere close to 48 hours. Because if you have the leg speed,
Wow.
you can run those flat sections really fast. And I just, coming off of Bigfoot, I didn't have the speed. And I wasn't expecting it, so it threw me off. But yeah, that opening part of the course, the first like, I don't know, 40K of it maybe is like absolutely like insane. And it's good you do that first.
Yeah, do you have to talk in kilometers since it's a Canadian race when you say the first 40K?
Well, like I did the conversions at one point, but like written out it was mostly in kilometers because that's what they give you. But the problem I had at that race is because I was so solo, I haven't experienced this, and if I have, I don't remember having experienced this, but I got so lonely during that race. I completely gave up twice while running that race. And so, because I was with people the first bit, and then I did about 100K section solo. I didn't see a single person. And then the guy who ended up in third place, because I guess I think I had been in third place. So the third place guy caught up to me, and when he finally did, I just kind of looked at him. I was like, I haven't seen anyone in like a day. Do you mind if I just like follow behind you for a while? And he was very nice and let me just kind of like tag along behind him for a bit. And then I got into that last aid station that's, I think is about mile 120. And I've been trying to catch up to him again, so I wasn't by myself. But then I did the last 80 miles without seeing a single other runner again. And I was just so lonely in the last like 20 miles. I just completely gave up on that race. I like stopped running. I stopped eating. I like blew up on purpose because I didn't want to run anymore. I just wanted to like see other people. I mean, I saw the volunteers, but like just hours and hours on the trail by yourself. And but once I got up to the final ridge, I thought I heard someone behind me. And instead of like that making me happy, it like freaked me out. So I just bombed into the finish. And I wasn't sure if I was like hearing things or if there was actually someone behind me. So, but I like didn't want to chance it. So I just all of a sudden started eating and like running as hard as I could. And I get to the finish. And then, yeah, sure enough, like 3 minutes after me, a guy comes running in. Wow. And I guess his wife had called him on his cell phone to tell him I was right in front of him. And I'd been like looking over my shoulder too because I wasn't sure if there was someone behind me. But I didn't see him, but he saw me, and then she told him that, and that's what gave him away. So if that hadn't happened, he definitely would have passed. But I didn't want to be passed in like the last 5 miles. I mean,
no way.
That would have been pretty disappointing.
So in all these remote races and stuff, do you have any good animal encounter stories of being out there?
Oh, so actually, right after I started running, when I heard him, the only encounter I had in all of Divide 200, there was like on the other side, like I was on the trail on one side of like a ravine. Directly across the ravine, there was like a moose. I was like, oh,
nice.
And like the first like 2 days, I hadn't seen anything, and then in the last like hour of a race, I see like a moose. So that's pretty nice.
It must have felt like you're the only person on Earth when you don't see anyone for so long. And then finally a moose, and then hearing a sound behind you must have been super startling.
Yes, definitely was. Yeah, and then everyone always talks about like mountain lions. I've never seen a mountain lion at a race, but a lot of people I've been running with have seen mountain lions at both Cocodona and Bigfoot. But like, actually that first year Cocodona, it was hilarious. So on the way into Whiskey Row, I think it was, I was running with another guy, and we run past this guy, and he's just crouched down, like it's like a dirt road, like staring, just like sitting there, and we're like, hey, like, you okay, dude? Like, what's going on? You need anything? He's like, no, I'm good. He's like, I'm staring at a mountain lion. There's a mountain lion right there. I called Jamil on the phone to let him know. Like, I've notified all the race people, but there's a mountain lion out here. We're like, yeah, there are. Like, maybe you shouldn't be sitting down. Like, maybe you should keep moving. I don't think Jamil's going to come out here to scare away this mountain lion because you think it's dangerous.
Wow. That's really strange. But I guess that's
it was
like
really
200s.
Bizarre.
That's like how 200s are in general. People go so deep.
I mean, I'm assuming the mountain lion was actually there, but it's like, probably shouldn't stare at it, and I'm pretty sure no one from the race is going to come out here just because you reported a mountain lion. Like, I think...
And not quickly.
Maybe you should come with us?
Yeah, they're not coming out quickly either way. You shouldn't be sitting there for multiple hours.
No, it's like I'm staring at it. I can't let it out of my sight. I mean, maybe it was just a hallucination. It was probably just a hallucination. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'll believe, but...
Yeah. So what do you do for work to afford to train and race all these 200s?
Well, so, yeah, for I know race fees are super expensive for most people and kind of like it's a big concern. I volunteer a lot for the race organizations to help. You can get either reduced prices or free races even. And so, like, that's one of the reasons I volunteer so much. I volunteer every year at Moab and usually the off years at Bigfoot. So like I said, this year I'll be aid station captaining, and I'm usually HQ at Moab. So that's an option, certainly, for people, just because I know most people can't just drop. I mean, I couldn't afford to drop 1,500 on multiple races a year. And then, like, a race like Divide, they have prize money.
Yep.
So my plan was to pay for it. And then, even if you get third place, it pays for the race at least. But I was like, oh, if I can get first place, then it definitely covers the cost of traveling. So, I try to make it work because I know 200s are kind of outside of the realm for most people. And, volunteering is such like a fun, like, I've met a lot of nice people, like awesome people running the races, but I've met so many awesome people volunteering as well. And people that'll come out and volunteer multiple years or volunteer and then run it. And so, like, you really get to know the 200 community really well that way. And so I definitely recommend for people, if they have the time, if they can do some volunteering, because it's just so awesome. And, the races always need volunteers, whether it's to run aid stations or for medical. I know some of the races, like our Vipa, I think, kind of hire out the medical and have it done by, they're not like directly in charge of the medical volunteers, but like for that destination they are. So
yeah, I remember you said with destination you could volunteer enough at one race to like pay for the next one, and that's pretty cool how you just almost trade off and you can pay for an entire race by being out there for a week in the woods.
Yeah, that's been my the way I've managed to figure it out. So yeah, like if you're like an aid station captain, it's not quite as much time, but you just need to bring like a crew out with you. So if you have like people you can count on to come help you volunteer, then you can run an aid station for like 2 or 3 days and get your race credit that way. So it's pretty
Sweet.
nice.
So what's next for you? What do you have going on the rest of the year?
I have one race left, Tour de Géants in Italy. So
that's a 200 miler too, right?
Yeah, it's like it's 330K. So I think it's like 204, 205, but it's like 80 to 90,000 feet of vert climbing.
Yep.
So
yeah,
it's gonna be. I attempted it once. It's one of my few 200 DNFs. I have two 200 DNFs, and one of them was at Tour, and it was not the right time for me to go out and try that race. I had a lot going on, and but I had made all the plans, so I didn't feel like I could back out, and it went about as well as I expected, and I DNF'd it my like 92, 94, somewhere around there.
Dang.
So I'm hoping for much better result this year.
Yeah, redemption. Yeah, well, that'll be fun. And then just nothing the rest of the year? Just like a really front-loaded year? All your races by August?
I don't, that's in September. Some people, like, are able to race a bunch of races in a year, but for me, I'm like, 3 races is, like, max for me. And so, like, especially with the 200s, like, 3 200s, like, I don't think I could race much more than that, like, because I do like to, like, actually race them, right? And already with Cocodona and Tahoe, it's really hard with how close they are. And so, yeah, I don't really, and I'm not big on, some people like races as training. I'm not someone who's really able to do training races just because I race every race, so, like, I can't like take it easy as like a training run. So yeah, so like next year, I have like my next several years planned, unfortunately, as one has
Whoa.
to do these days. Well, not several, like 2 years. So I already know what I'm racing next year, and
What is it?
it's
What's the insight? What are you racing next year?
I'm gonna do Cocodona, Tahoe, and then there's something in the works for Bigfoot. So it will be the 10-year anniversary of Bigfoot. So we're gonna try and do something fun. Well, something cool,
Okay.
I guess I'll say.
We'll be on the lookout. Well,
Stay
thanks for
tuned.
jumping on.
Yes. Thanks for having me. It's
Yeah,
always
this was
fun
fun.
to chat with you.
Yeah, you have the best stories. I remember for like 33 miles at the start of Cocodona, all we did was tell stories and talk, and it was super fun.
And I was gonna say it's similar to when we were running together at Cocodona, except we're both a little more coherent, I would say.
Yeah, but even so, it was like cooler this year, so it was pretty coherent that first 33 miles.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we were together on and off into. It was. I ran with you a bit out after Whiskey Row. Oh, that. What is that? That creek one? I caught up to you. We were together for a little bit. I don't even
Yeah, I
remember.
mean, off and on, we always were within a mile or two, I think, for
That
like
is true.
almost the entire race.
I know. I got into some aid stations. I'm like, how long ago did Jeff leave?
Well, you would get in sometimes before me, but I would try to leave really quickly because I wasn't moving very fast. And so then you'd catch up again, and it felt like it kind of kept going like that.
Yeah, towards the end it was, but I want to say I had a lot of stomach issues,
Hmm.
which is really rare for me towards the like from mile like 60 or 70 on for the rest of the race. I ended up stealing a bunch of your stuff. Um,
Yep, I know.
Allison was nice enough to donate a lot of your stuff. But yeah, so for like that 100 miles, I want to say from mile like 100 to close to 200, you were like just ahead of me the whole time, I want to say. I like kept trying to like catch up to you, and you were always like, oh, he left 15 minutes ago or whatever. And I was like,
Cool. Well, I'll let you go, but thanks again. This was super fun.
yeah, thanks a lot for having me on.
And that's the episode for today. Thanks again, everyone. All your messages, likes, shares, follows, all that. It's awesome as we continue building more things, adding more things. I've done like a lot of, maybe like 20 hours of trail work in the last week and a half, and I am just exhausted. Well, yeah, I think next week I'll be going after the Tahoe Rim Trail as well, the FKT. So we'll see how that goes. But with that, let's just call it a day. See you guys later. Stay elite, my friends.